Hey Falcon fans, I'm Thomas Mock. Welcome into Atlanta Falcons today. It is June 2nd. Now, we've talked about in videos in the past how after June 1st, some trades could happen. And obviously there's one internal trade candidate, Deion Jones, we'll talk about him in a second, who very easily could be moved. But there are some other players on other teams in the NFL who also might be traded due to the fact that their contracts change after June 1st, a lot more tradable, if you will. And a lot of them are kind of in positions of need for the Atlanta Falcons. And even though it's very unlikely Atlanta is going to make a big splash, there still are some players out there that could be traded after June 1st, and now that we're after June 1st, let's go ahead and jump right into those candidates. So, as I mentioned, kind of a 30,000-foot view here. It's a little mini trade season after June 1, and this is because some NFL contracts have clauses in them, essentially. They really dumbed this down, kindergarten level, where you can have an easier time trading for that player. The dead cap money is lessened a little bit. The cap savings is, greater, and so getting rid of a guy for a team is a lot easier and makes a lot more sense. And so, Atlanta, being a team that has cap space and has draft capital next year and has plenty of needs, as we talked about, could be a really good, I'd say, landing spot for some of these players who might be trying to be either cut or traded over the next couple of days and weeks. Now, as I mentioned, the one big internal candidate for the Falcons is Deion Jones. He's likely to be moved, and we've talked about the drama that he's had regarding the offseason shoulder surgery and whether that was actually necessary or whether he's trying to force his way out. Either way, Jones is likely to go ahead and be moved in the coming days and weeks here. I think teams are going to hope the Falcons cut him. We don't have to trade draft capital for him, but if you really wanted Deion Jones, you ship the Falcons a 6th-round draft pick, and he's yours. And obviously, as we mentioned, his contract is way more tradable today than it was 2 days ago on May 31st because the way the contract has worked out and the way dead cap money works. And all that intricate cap junk that is just a little too dramatic to go ahead and get into. Just know that Deion Jones is your one big internal candidate for the Falcons, likely to be traded or cut in the next couple of days and weeks. We'll get into the first of our 5 potential trade options for the Falcons if they want to go add somebody after June 1st. First, though, drop a like down below in this video if you think the Falcons will make another move. Are they done? You saw the big free agency, you saw obviously what they were able to do with the draft. Are they done making moves? If you think they're not, I think they're going to make another one, give this video a thumbs up. Okay, first player on our list is Philadelphia's Fletcher Cox. Now, Cox is definitely one of the ones you read about and have heard about the past couple of days, especially in the June 1st trade idea list that you see, Bleach Report and SI.com and all the different blog websites. Maybe because Fletcher Cox's contract becomes a lot more tradable for the Philadelphia Eagles today after June 1st than it was, obviously, pre-June 1st. There would be like a $25 million cap hit had Philadelphia traded him away before June 1st, and now it's like $12 million. And so while I think Philadelphia is going to keep him, there definitely could be an option if Atlanta feels a need on that defensive line to add another interior pass rusher, add some help against the run, which Cox has been statistically very good against throughout his career. It could make some sense here on what is, again, one of the weaker parts in the Falcons' entire team. This defensive line has been retooled. It has been revamped. It is better than it was last year, but what if it was Cox plus Grady Jarrett? That could be some serious interior push. It really depends on what you think of Marlon Davidson. Like, if the Falcons believe Marlon Davidson is going to come into his own this year and actually be a decent interior pass rusher, or at least interior run stopper. But if not, and they wanted to make a big move to kind of put the finishing touches on this defensive line, Cox could make a lot of sense. And really, if you liked him enough and he played well this year, you could re-sign him to like a 2-year deal and kind of let him, play out the twilight years of his career in Atlanta alongside Grady Jarrett. Now, would you guys trade for Fletcher Cox? He'd be expensive, at least to re-sign. Not very expensive in terms of draft capital. If you would, type Y down below for yes. If you would not, type N down below for no. Okay, let's mention Deebo Samuel here. Now, Deebo Samuel does not have a special clause in his contract that makes it more tradable after June 1st, and so he's kind of a bonus plug into our list of 5 here, but we can't talk about trades right now without mentioning the biggest trade piece yet to be moved the entire offseason, and that's Deebo Samuel. Now, Samuel, my question is, will he try to force his way out of San Francisco? Because I felt like he was going to before the NFL draft, and then during the draft, apparently, according to reports, the Niners had offers by the Jets at number 10 to trade for him, and they said no. And so, obviously, they're trying to keep Deebo Samuel, but maybe he gets to the point where Samuel's going to hold out enough where he goes, get me out of here, I want to go somewhere else. And that's where you can see the Atlanta Falcons trying to slide in there and really bolster this wide receiver core by getting Drake London in the draft and then obviously trading for Deebo Samuel. The likelihood of this happening to me is extremely slim, though. Atlanta, it'd be a big move. They'd have to really want him, and you're giving up, a first-round draft pick, maybe a second-round draft pick for Deebo Samuel, so I don't think it's going to happen, but I wanted to at least include him on the list because I know a lot of Falcon fans and a lot of NFL fans in general, when you bring up a trade list, if you don't mention Deebo Samuel, who has been trying to get out of San Francisco for months now, then people go, this list doesn't make a lot of sense. So not really a June 1st trade or a post-June 1st trade, but still a trade candidate nonetheless. We got to at least include him, even though he is the least likely player on this list the Falcons could go ahead and trade for. That doesn't mean you don't want him, right? I mean, how bad would you want Deebo Samuel? Really bad. He'd be great on this roster, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, he's a young, absolute stud at wide receiver. Scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you want Deebo? Let us know down below right now in the comment section. If it's a 10, let me know. If it's a 1, then let me know down there as well. Okay, a really good post-June 1st trade candidate that I think Atlanta should definitely look at is number 3 here on the list, Isaac Seumalo. Now, you don't know who Isaac Seumalo is. He's the left guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, has been really good throughout his career, very healthy until last year when, of course, he missed a bunch of games due to an injury. But the way that this, of course, worked with his contract is that Philadelphia can trade him for way less of a dead cap hit now after June 1st than what it was pre-June 1st. He could slide right in and maybe be not only the starting left guard, like for sure the starting left guard, but the best O-lineman on this roster, and that's better than Jake Matthews. Seumalo, when healthy, is really, really good, and no one talks about him. He's one of those under-the-radar, undercover, starting quality left guards, and Philadelphia has a surplus of guards right now after drafting Cam Jurgens, and so you could really see them realistically ship him away to a team that needs a guard, and honestly, again, Atlanta is a team that could really, really use a left guard, and so if there was one player on this list that to me screams a great fit post-June 1st for the Atlanta Falcons, it is Isaac Seumalo, and I'd love for them to go ahead and pull the trigger. We'll get to 7,000 subs very soon with your help. We're at 6,751 right now. If you guys want to go ahead and be a part of the ever-growing group here on Atlanta Falcons Today, the channel subscribers, subscribe down below. It's right below our like button there, the big red button. Hit the notification bell as well, as we have you guys up to date with news, rumors, lists like this, trade stuff, roster breakdowns, everything regarding your Falcons almost every day here on the channel. If you like it, go down below and subscribe. Okay, we can't mention, of course, post-June 1st trade targets without mentioning Nelson Agholor, because he is one of the few wide receivers that I think might really get shipped after June 1st, as everyone else in the list, minus Deebo Samuel. His contract is way easier to trade now if you're in New England versus what it was just a couple of days ago. Now, Agholor was weird. Really good 2 years ago. Like, he was very impressive his initial year. Not very impressive this past year. 15 games, 37 catches, 473 yards, 3 touchdowns. If you were to trade for him, you're basically just adding him to the list of misfits? Like, what do you want to call them here? Like, these wide receivers minus Drake London are kind of, has-beens or, people who had potential and never, actually became good. Former number 2s, number 3s, number 4s. Like, it's a very weird group of wide receivers. And now I think that Bryan Edwards is kind of the guy that they traded for to really be the number 2. If he doesn't look good over the next couple of months, then maybe you need another guy to go ahead and come in to maybe get some competition at wide receiver. They don't need Nelson Agholor if this receiver core plays well. But obviously, if they don't, this is going to be not just a mediocre receiver core, it's going to be a really bad receiver core. And so, while I do think that Agholor has definitely taken a step back since his last year in Philadelphia and his first year in New England, he still has a lot of potential to be a number 2 or number 3 on a roster in desperate need of him. Okay, final player on our list here for our post-June 1st trade targets, Chris Carson, the running back for the Seattle Seahawks. A couple of reasons here. One, Chris Carson coming off of a neck injury that was way worse than people thought. Missed the majority of the year last year. Gonna be healthy, should be healthy, but the Seahawks very clearly made a move to kind of get rid of him by drafting Kenneth Walker in the NFL draft out of Michigan State. And so Carson is kind of the odd man out there. They still have Rashard Penny too. They might cut him, and then you could just not trade for him, but if they keep him on the roster and Atlanta really wants to add to their running back depth chart, Carson does make a lot of sense. A couple years removed from being like a 1,200-yard back. Like, he was really, really good for Seattle when Russell Wilson was there just a couple of years ago. So this depth chart, they've added to it. They might be done. Even swap over Avery Williams, who's now going from cornerback to running back. And so maybe there isn't a need for another running back. But there are a couple out there that could make a lot of sense. And Myles Gaskin was another one that was floated as a potential player on this list as well. It really comes down to how confident are you in what you have right now? Tyler Algier, you think he's going to be very, very good. You got Nichols you just added, Avery Williamson. Obviously, Cordell Patterson going to kind of be your number 1. Damian Williams maybe your 2. Maybe they think what's like the wide receiver core that they're good and they're fine and don't need anybody. But if they don't and they need somebody, Chris Carson could make a lot of sense. Maybe have a revitalizing time as a running back on this roster. Okay, pick a player from my list that you would want to trade for post-June 1st. Again, will these people actually be traded? Will they not? Who knows? But they're the most likely to be traded based on their contracts being a little easier to trade after June 1. Got Cox at 1, Deebo Samuel, Isaac Seumalo, Nelson Agholor, and Chris Carson to round out my list. Is there one player on this list you'd really like in Atlanta Falcons uniform? I know we'll all say Deebo, but for me, it's Isaac Seumalo. Like, you got to revamp that offensive line, and they tried to, and they're gonna, it's gonna be different than last year. I think better than last year, but left guard could really be fixed with a guy like Isaac Seumalo. So I'd love him to be the player if we only pick one added from this list. Okay, ultimate day on our Atlanta Falcons news and review video here, looking at post-June 1st trade targets. Of course, follow me on Twitter, @RealThomasMod. I do a lot of Falcon stuff on there, a lot of tweets, a lot of retweets, and so if you guys want to give me a follow, ask a question as well, you can DM me on Twitter. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel as well. Let's get to 7K subs here on the ever-growing Atlanta Falcons Today YouTube channel. For producer Trace on today's episode, Thomas Mott, out of time, signing off for the rest of your day.